Hey again, everybody. Professor Smith here. Long-awaited video for this week. A bunch of stuff that I want to talk about and show. I'm going to be uploading some stuff as well, and I'll be letting you know about that via an email when everything is done. But welcome to the second project. Welcome to the second main theme that we're going to be discussing, reading about, writing about, researching about, which is going to carry us through 95% of the rest of the semester. So there'll be a week or two towards the end where we transition out of this, but until then, strap in because we're here for the long haul and our major paper for the semester. All right, so I'm going to be looking over to the left because I have my notes up on another screen just to make sure that I cover all the stuff that I wanted to cover today. All right, so first let's talk about the new theme that we are moving into. All right, so it's kind of hard for us to ignore what's happening in the world around us. I'm not talking about the elections. I'm talking about the other big thing that's going on. I mean, I know there's a lot of things going on, but there seems to be one thing in particular that is the biggest of them all, and one that does not seem to be going away just yet or soon. Right? COVID, Corona, the global pandemic that we are going through. It's hard for me, and I would imagine the same case for yourselves, that it's hard to think about any aspect of our lives or the world that we live in that COVID hasn't affected or altered in some capacity. I remember reading stories, seeing pictures when this first began and kind of the whole world went into lockdown, and animals coming back out that had not been seen for a while, or smog in certain cities going away, and like the air kind of cleaning up, and it's like thinking about the environment and the human's impact on said environment. Our economy, whether it's business, whether it's the amount of tax deductions or handouts or government help, or how we work, businesses, whatever the case might be. I've been thinking a lot about New York City in particular, and all those businesses that spend thousands of dollars for real estate, for office space in New York City. Now they're working from home. I wonder what that's going to do to New York City's economy moving forward. Are people going to come back to work? Do offices need as much space moving forward? We also have schooling. New York City schools are opening right now for younger kids, and there seems to be a lot going on with that. If you know a teacher, or friends with one, your parents might be one, a sibling, whoever the case might be, you might have heard some pretty crazy stories already. I know somebody, and 3 children showed up to their class the other day. We also have healthcare as well. Some of you may have done telehealth, video conferencing with a doctor over the course of this pandemic. I know personally I have, so I wonder what that's going to mean moving forward. So again, really, there's almost no aspect of our lives that that Corona hasn't seemed to touch, hasn't seemed to affect. And as we watch the news, as we surf through social media, as we talk to people, there seems to be a lot of conflicting, different, changing, back and forth information that's going on. And what I want to do for this section of our class is I want to try and take what we did for the first part and those 5 media literacy skills and sort of see how they might apply to the information, whether it's from our government, the CDC, whether it's from friends, social media, the news, and how that might apply and how we might come to some sort of semblance of understanding of how to operate in this world, what should be done, what shouldn't be done, because we are just at the beginning phases of this world that we're living in, and we're living in it now, and we can remember what life was like in January of this year. We can remember life, this time last year, but I wonder, and I think a lot of people do as well, whether or not we go back to normal, or whether it's we go back to the new normal. a lot of times, different generations of individuals have a defining moment. And when I say a defining moment, I'm not talking about a moment where you as an individual, I as an individual, came across a person or had this, epiphany or had this tragic thing happen. But I'm talking about happening collectively to all of us. I think the clearest one I might be able to think of is 9/11, and the world and how it changed after those attacks. Like, there's a very clear distinction between pre 9/11 and the post 9/11 world in terms of security, in terms of safety, in terms of how we travel, in terms of the internet, in terms of our own liberties and how the government monitors us and things along those lines. So, like, the world drastically changed, and it affected people, and now they have to kind of figure out the new world and how they're going to go through it, and the rules and the regulations, and what we should and shouldn't do. And I think this is the same case for COVID, that it's not like we're just living through this, we'll have a cure, a vaccine, and we'll go back to normal. But the world's going to look different. Work is going to look different. I mean, how do you tell all these people who've been successfully working at home over the last year, or close to a year, now you have to go back to wasting 2.5 hours of your day commuting? Why would a business who has hopefully been successful in this time, why would they want to spend all that money on rent when they could focus it in other areas of developing their business and developing their employees? Doctors with virtual health, schooling, all these sort of things are out of the bag. Even outdoor dining and drinks to go. Like, in New York City, traditionally, drinks to go has been super duper illegal. Not super duper, like, you're not going to go to jail or anything, but illegal enough where you should not be doing it. But now it's been happening. So once there's a cure, do we go back, or does the landscape not drastically change, but does the landscape of New York City, of where we're living, alter enough where it's not the same as it was before? So this is what I want to be looking at. This is what I want to be reading. This is what I want to be focusing on. And this is where I want you guys and gals to take a deep dive into one particular area of this changing landscape, of this changing world that we are living in, that we are, let me not even say living in, that we are creating as we go through it. Even as students, we are sort of working through what happens and how we're going to do it. So that's the purpose of this section, to explore and research further with our own research skills how COVID has affected us, how it continues to affect us, and how it might affect us moving forward into the future. All right. So with that, I want to kind of turn to the second thing that I wanted to, we're going to turn to the second thing that I wanted to talk about today, which is a general overview of Project 2. For me, this is our major project. The first project was sort of a stepping stone to this, and there's a lot of things that I gave to you to use within paper 1. That you're not going to get this time around. And it's not because I'm trying to be mean or a jerk. It's because we're developing our research skills, and doing what we're going to do is part of developing those skills. So this project is going to be longer. It's 7 to 10 pages. It's going to be more in depth in terms of your research. You now have a minimum of 4 resources that you're going to be using. Some of them have to be scholarly, which we will talk about. It's a little early for that, so let me not get too far into that. You can how do I put this? I'm sorry. All right, so you can pretty much do, and when I say do, you can pretty much choose any specific subject that you'd like within our agreed upon topic. Right? If we remember our introductions, boom, we start with that, introducing the topic. So our topic is COVID and its effect on our society, our world, and how it moves, and moving forward, right? Its effect and how it's going to affect us in the future as well, right? So that's our topic, and we're all starting from that place. Now, as we move down that triangle into subject, what you're specifically talking about, this is where you can pretty much choose whatever you'd like as long as it fits under that topic. Like, you can't write a paper about the flat earth, or you can't write a paper about, I don't know, healthy baby foods, because I don't know how that's connected to the theme of global pandemic, of public health, of COVID, of Corona. So it's gotta fit into that topic, but you get to pick the subject. Now, what do you do when somebody says to you, you have to do a 7 to 10 page research paper, here's your topic, go and good luck? So we talked about this a little bit when we started the first paper, and we talked about the phases of research. The first phase, generating ideas. I gave you your question, your research question for last project. I gave you 4 choices for what you can use to go through your project. Some of you chose differently to do your own research, but a lot of you chose the 4 that I gave you, and that was totally fine. Like, there's a reason I gave that. But for this time, you got to figure out what you want to do, and if you sit down at a computer and start typing into your WordPress or your word processor, or even into like Google or Bing or whatever, and you're like, I gotta do a project, you're not gonna know what to type. You just type in COVID, or you'll just start writing about COVID in general. So how do we narrow down those ideas? How do we get ourselves from topic to subject? Well, we generate ideas. How do we do that? There's a few ways to do that. You could watch or read the news. And when I say watch or read the news, I'm not talking about Fox 5 at 5, or I'm not talking about Fox News Network or CNN. There's a lot of news sources out there, whether it's in the mainstream or whether it is in the, what do you call the thing under mainstream? Underground, I guess? I don't know. It gives it a weird tone to it. I don't like it. But that's what we'll call it for now, right? Whether it's like YouTube news commentators or bloggers or podcasters, like, these are all forms of news. It doesn't have to be you sitting and watching CNN or you watching Fox or whatever the case might be. If you're not into that, you can try scrolling through your social media. Chances are you have one friend, one uncle, one cousin, one person you know who posts political stuff, whether it's on the left, that might be your right, but that's my left, or whether it's the right. So I know I personally, when I scroll through my feed, I see some very liberal stuff, and I also see some very right-wing conservative stuff. So you can start to look at those and be like, that's interesting. I don't know if that's true, or that seems true, and let me investigate a little bit further, right? Talk to people, bring up what's happening in the world. If you start a conversation with somebody who was a bartender, but they're currently not bartending because of what's going on, then maybe you can have a conversation about restaurants and going out to eat in public spaces and all that stuff. Watch TV, so it doesn't have to be news. Again, as I said earlier, there's almost nowhere you can go to escape COVID unless you're going to the woods by yourself without your phone. South Park just did an hour-long special last night on COVID. There's TV shows that are discussing it. There's talk shows that are discussing it. Excuse me. There's podcasts that are discussing it. So, I know that you can't watch a podcast, but watch YouTube, listen to a podcast, watch TV. Again, it doesn't have to be news, but the idea here is if you're watching stuff and you're thinking about stuff and somebody's mentioned something about Corona, it kind of goes into your ear, it kind of spins around your brain, and then hopefully it'll come out of your mouth as some idea, or out of your hands as some idea that you might be able to further investigate for your COVID research paper. You can Google stuff by typing into just Google, COVID information, or COVID health, or COVID news, or global pandemic news. There's so many different searches you can do that'll give you a lot of random websites, news websites, public health websites. As I said before, watch YouTube. Lastly, you could even check out like the CDC or the World Health Organization or any sort of major organization, newspaper or online publication where they might be talking about updates or developments with corona and things along those lines. Lastly, you can even check out some foreign news. Like I personally know a few people who live in Denmark, and when I talk to them about what's going on in their country, and I start to think about what's happening in this country, so you might not know anybody who lives in another country, but you can try and look up some like English-speaking newspapers in maybe England or Australia or New Zealand or Canada, in order to try and find out what they're talking about and maybe make a comparison to what's happening here or to what you've seen. But yeah, you can use personal experience for this as well, because this really is a jumping off point. It's not you doing your research. Most of what you're looking at won't even be used within your research paper. Most of what you're looking at, listening to, watching is there to spark ideas, spark interest, and to say, hey, you know what? I'm really interested in doing a paper on this subject because I watched this TV show or I watched this special or whatever the case might be. So, for instance, and we could look at this as I show this, right? Hopefully you can see this screen now, right? So I just typed into Google COVID-19 news, and this does change, right? As the hours change and as more news gets thrown up. But the top headline, Trump's positive COVID test throws country into fresh upheaval. So it looks like President Donald Trump contracted COVID. That sucks. I hope he's okay. But it gets me starting to think a little bit, right? So if this interests me, how might I be able to turn this into a research paper? It's like, I'm thinking about how Donald Trump hasn't always worn a mask and has kind of been a little back and forth on the benefits of masks. And I'm trying to think, I wonder if he and his team were really just intense and hardcore about wearing masks, would he have gotten sick? So for my research, I'm thinking about doing a paper, not on Donald Trump, right? Like this just sparked interest, but doing a paper on the effectiveness of masks. And now that I think about that, right? Like I listen to some people say like, oh, they're not that effective. And I hear other people say like, they're the best thing that any of us can do to try and get back to some sort of semblance of what life used to be like. So the article about Trump sparked interest because I'm thinking about masks, so I might talk about Donald Trump in the paper, but that's not really the focus of my paper. The focus of my paper would be the effectiveness of wearing masks at stopping the spread of a global pandemic. And, like I look through, and like that's just the first one on this list. Like there's other things. I mean, this is really intense, but with Trump. But okay, boom. Amazon says more than 1,900 workers, 19,000 workers got COVID. So, is the workplace safe? I mean, can I write a paper about the effectiveness of how to go back, open up business, how to not stop things? I probably won't focus my paper on Amazon solely, but starting to think about people going back to work and who has done it safely and who hasn't done it safely, and maybe start thinking about how people really can go back to work. It's like I'm just sparking these ideas from a Google search about news for COVID. And as you scroll through, some other ideas might come up. And it's not about, Nancy Pelosi, it's not Nancy Pelosi, sorry. Nancy Pelosi did this, and I'm going to write a research paper on Nancy Pelosi, but Nancy Pelosi did this, like what does that mean, and what is the larger issue here that I can deal with? So that's one way in which to start doing your generating of ideas and then start thinking about what it is that you want to do. The other thing would be, I mean, another topic that I'd be interested in doing comes from my own personal experience. There's been so very much that has sucked and stunk and has been terrible because of COVID. But one of the things I really hated was wiping down my food after going to a supermarket. And now that I'm thinking, I gotta do research, and I really wonder about, is that an effective thing to do? Should people be wiping down their groceries? I don't know. But maybe if I did some research, I might be able to find some clearer answers, because if you go on and you can find one quick source that says this and another quick source that says that, how do you reconcile between them? Right? And this is why we do research. But if we're going to do research, this has to be the first step. We got to generate ideas. The only way to generate ideas is to look outside your own worldview. To start thinking, to start watching, to start gathering ideas. Like, what does it mean to generate ideas? Like, do you just sit here and like, ideas, COVID, ideas, got it, boom, nailed it. Nope, it's probably not how it works. So you actually have to put in the work. You actually have to go outside your own comfort zone, go outside your own level of knowledge, and try and learn some stuff, figure some stuff out, and think. And this is so important that this is going to actually be the first step, or the first part of our research journals. Yay, research journals. So it's another part of our grade, and I'm going to make another video and a full prompt for our research journals. I'm going to be posting those today as well, because as you're generating ideas, I don't want you to just think and think and think. I actually want you to think, write, think, write, so on and so forth, boop-a-doop-a-doop. That's how we're going to do it. So we're going to start reading and thinking about global pandemics. We are going to start writing about them. We are going to start researching about them, and we are hopefully going to find out some information. Okay, so there's another video as well. Check them both out. I look forward to talking to you all soon.